and that's not why. And I had to explain, I'm not running because of some long-held ambition. I'm not running because I think it's somehow owed to me. By the way, you guys can sit down if you have chairs. Feel free. I don't want anybody getting faint.
We've got solutions.
So, I didn't decide to run because I thought it was owed to me or because I thought it was my turn. I decided to run because what Dr. King called the fierce urgency of now. The fierce urgency of now. Because I believe there's such a thing as being too late. And I think that hour is almost upon us. I mean, think about the times that we live in. Our nation is not just involved in two wars, in one war we're involved in two. We're fighting a war in Afghanistan that had to be fought and has to be finished. A war against Al-Qaeda and those who killed 3,000 Americans. And we're fighting in a war that I believe should have never been authorized and should have never been waged in Iraq, a war that we have to win. But it's not just in our foreign policy that we face critical decisions. Here at home, families all across America are in the midst of enormous struggle. You know, you probably know it in your own lives, but I'll just give you an example. I was with a family this morning, the Fisher family, just outside of Indianapolis. And the father, he's about to lose his job because the facility where he works as a machinist is closing. The mother has multiple sclerosis, but she still works full-time. The son, who's working 16 hours a day for a small business, doesn't have health insurance, and his wife just had a baby, needs to have some additional surgery. They can't afford it, even though she's getting infections and is sick constantly. They're going to have to wait and figure out how they can save $5,000 at the same time as they try to save to buy a house. Their daughter is married to a young man who's about to be deployed to Iraq, even though she is pregnant and will soon be due. Now that family alone describes the struggles that we are seeing everywhere we go. This is the first time in history since we kept records, since World War II, where families actually have less income after an economic expansion than they did before. The average family has lost $1,000 over the last 7.5 years since George Bush took office. The average Hoosier has seen an 8% decline in wages in real terms when you adjust for inflation. And so less money is coming in at the same time as the cost of everything is going up. The cost of college is going up. The cost of health care is going up. The cost of a gallon of milk is going up, and Lord knows a gallon of gas is going sky high here in Indiana and all across the country. And so what's happening then is people are bringing in less money, but more money is going out, and at the end of the month, the budget doesn't balance. People have been borrowing through credit cards, they've been borrowing through home equity loans, but now the housing market has collapsed because of the lack of regulation, which means that values are going down. People can't borrow against their homes anymore. That's how they were paying for college educations. That's what they were planning to do for retirement. Those options are no longer available. Meanwhile, we've got 47 million people without health insurance. And if you've got health insurance, your premiums have gone up 78% since George Bush took office. And our education system, upon which our economic future depends, leaves millions of children behind, despite the slogan, unable to compete in an international economy. Now, In such circumstances, we can't afford to wait. We can't wait to fix our schools. We can't wait to fix our healthcare system. We can't wait to bring good jobs and good wages here to Indiana and all across America. We can't wait to end global warming. We cannot wait to bring this war in Iraq to a close. We cannot wait. And that is why I'm running right here and right now. Woo! On the United States of America. But the reason I'm also running is because I've been betting on you, the American people. Now, I was convinced that the size of our challenges had outstripped the capacity of our broken politics to solve. And I figured the American people agree with me. I was convinced that you were tired of a politics that was all about tearing each other down instead of lifting the country up. I was convinced that people didn't want spin and PR from their politicians. They wanted honesty, truthfulness, straight talk. I was most of all convinced that the American people are a decent people and a generous people willing to work hard and sacrifice for future generations. I had seen it all my life, starting when I worked as a community organizer in the shadows of steel mills that closed, and we're working with people trying to set up job training programs and churches trying to rebuild communities. I was always convinced that if we could just come together, if we could get past our religious and racial and regional differences, all of us, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Native American, young, old, rich, poor, gay, straight, all of us reminding ourselves that we are Americans first, that there is nothing we can't accomplish. I was convinced that there was no destiny we could not fulfill. And I'm here to report that after traveling through 46 states, after speaking to hundreds of thousands of people and shaking hundreds of thousands of hands and kissing hundreds of babies, I am absolutely convinced that my bet has paid off. My faith has been vindicated because everywhere I go, the American people are saying it is time for change. We want something new. We are ready to write a new chapter in American history. And that's what we are going to do here in Indiana in this week. Now, I realize that this primary has gone on a long time, and so there are those of you who are getting a little nervous. You say, oh, you know, the Obama folks are over here, the Clinton folks are over here, and we're not sure whether everybody's going to come together in November. Let me tell you something. There's one thing we're certain of, no matter what else happens. Come this November, when you go into the polling place, the name George W. Bush will not be on the ballot. The name of my cousin, Dick Cheney, will not be on the ballot. That was really embarrassing when that news came out. We're not going on the family hunting party. But his name won't be on the ballot, so that means that the era of Katrina mismanagement and Brownie incompetence and warrantless wiretaps and Scooter Libby justice, all that can come to an end. But it is not But understand, just because Bush's name and Cheney's name won't be on the ballot, that doesn't mean their policies won't be on the ballot. Because John McCain is running for George Bush's third term. I admire John McCain for his heroism and his service to our country. But John McCain has said that he agrees and champions George Bush's policy of a war without an exit strategy. He said that he's willing to have a presence of U.S. troops for 100 years. That is a policy we can no longer afford. We can't afford it in blood, we can't afford it in treasure, and it is not making us more safe, and so we can't afford to have John McCain in the White House for 4 years or 8 years. And then John McCain, he wants to continue Bush's economic policies. He surveyed, he said, the Bush economic record and concluded that we had made great progress.
What?
This is what he said.
From what?
Great progress, that's what he called it. I don't know about you, but I think he must not have spoken to the 232,000 people who lost their jobs since the beginning of the year. He must not be talking to the millions of people without health insurance, the towns that have been decimated because plants have been shipped overseas. He must not be talking to the millions of people who are at risk of losing their homes because of a mortgage foreclosure crisis. He must not be talking to young people all across America who are seeing college loans dry up, who are trying to figure out how to manage $20 or $30 or $40,000 worth of debt.
Yeah.
He must not be talking to young people who can't even get out of high school because their schools are under. I don't see great progress. You don't see great progress. And you know, the truth is, John McCain, when he saw George Bush's economic policies and those tax cuts for the wealthy, way back when he wasn't running for president, he said they offended his conscience. But his conscience got misplaced. The Straight Talk Express lost a wheel on the way to the Republican nomination, and that's why we can't afford to have John McCain continue the Bush legacy for another 4 years.
Yeah.
So here's my point. I have real differences with Senator Clinton. We are having a vigorous debate, but our differences pale in comparison to the differences we have with John McCain. And this party will be unified in November to make sure that we are taking the country in an entirely new course. We will be unified in that mission.